Greetings, I am Hasiem Ayale Kimbui. I'm a full professor at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, FAMU, in the College of Education within the Department of Educational Leadership and Counseling. I am long overdue for a video, and so I wanted to post this video dealing with uh, an area of study of particular interest to me, and that deals with the study of African historical and traditional religion. I have a video around the subject and wrote a book around the subject as well, dealing with Afrocentric Pan-Africanism, the power of God in religion. And so I wanted to do a short video in connection to my recent travel to Saudi Arabia and the study of African historical and traditional religion. Generally, in that region, it's referred to as pre-Islamic religion. So I'm going to get into that. I still plan to do a video, also a third installment around the topic of race. I just need to record it. And so I plan to do that, but I wanted to again upload this video. And so let me give you a little context to why I'm doing this video. My teacher, Kwabena Fahim Ashanti, he used to do have what is considered a religious conference. Started back in 2001 in Durham, North Carolina, or in and around 2001, 2002. I may be again off with my dates. That was the first um, religious crusade conference. And man, that first conference was great, held in Durham, North Carolina. It was packed. I met so many scholars who presented around the subject of, again, African historical and traditional religion. I met Dr. Leonard Jeffries and his wife. I met Kwesi Khan. I think he was there as well. I met the elder Walimu. Um, I met many other scholars that have since transitioned. Also met Dr. or Professor James Small, great brother. One thing I can say about him is that, you know, in me hearing the brother speak and seeing him, give talks, he was just like that in person. I didn't even know the brother. The elder took time to speak with me and, share his thoughts, and we went back and forth, meaning, I had questions and he had some questions he asked me, and it was a real brief conversation, but he was very genuine. That's one thing I can say about Professor Small. I met another brother, African martial artist, Mahati Kalindi Iyi. I found out he recently passed, but I met his students. Students actually came down to the conference, and then that also led me going up to Detroit and participating in a seminar he had up there. I'm very grateful to him for that, and also his students who took care of me when I was up there. Very thankful to his family as well, and all his students. So, but I met so many, and I don't want to leave any names out. But the that conference is where well, not where I began. However, that's where I continue to collect information um, for my study dealing with African traditional religion. And that was the first conference. There were two others held in Durham, North Carolina. Also, several ones were held in Raleigh, North Carolina. I also met Dr. Laila Africa. I can't forget that brother. His same way. I mean, the way that brother spoke, and when you met that brother, it was one and the same, very genuine. Um, and he wasn't ashamed to give out his number and you call him. Very good brother. I really, I look back to those times and those elders, and what they shared was great. So I got to meet, and there's a lot of others. I don't recall their names at the moment. I know for the subsequent conferences, I also met Amuada Ashby and his wife for the conference he came. I met Dr. John Ashodi, who actually wrote a book that's a great resource. I think it was entitled, and Dr. Ashodi, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Don't have it with me in front of me. It's African Psychology Then and Now. Great resource. I actually use that even in my dissertation. I even use it even in my practice. But those that are in any way connected to mental health should really have that book. Uh, Man, there was just so many others that I met, and again, everyone was very genuine um, that I spoke to. But that's sort of like a backdrop. But even more specifically, um, regarding my travel, was the last Religious Sanctify Crusade conference that was held in Atlanta, Georgia, and that was very historic in the sense that at that conference, Dr. Leonard Jeffries also he was there, and Dr. Lifi Kete Asante and Dr. Amam Mazama was there. Now, that was the first time that Dr. Malifi Kete Asante and Leonard Jeffries had spoken because for a while they had a disagreement, and it was beautiful in the sense that they were able to speak and hash over their differences. I don't know what the relationship is today, but again at that conference they spoke for the first time. Then this is back in 2014. And one of the key things for me was at that conference, besides that as well, there was a lot of key things, but in the context of what I'm talking about today in my visit to Saudi Arabia was that Dr. Amma Mazama presented on Islam, and one of her talking points in the presentation was that how come uh, you know those Africans that practice Islam won't set up their own shrines instead of having to or wanting to, I should say, wanting to go to Mecca and that that shrine there. Uh, and so, in a way, that I actually wanted to go firsthand and go um, to Saudi Arabia and study what is considered pre-Islam and Islam, and sort of look at it. Not just talking about it per se. I'm not saying talking about it is wrong. However, one of the things that stood out to me and what I'm trying to articulate here is my teacher at one point, Dr. Kwabena Fahim Ashanti, said, Hassim, you're unique. And what he meant by that is that there are a lot of well-read, well-articulated, well written people that speak on ideas about a number of subjects, and that matters. However, at the same time, too, if you actually go to these places and put your eyes on them and you visit it there, that provides a whole nother different um, way of writing and talking about it because you've seen it firsthand, not just through word of mouth. And so, I think about that last Religious Crusade conference and what was said, and my interest in African traditional religion to actually going to Saudi Arabia. And I was invited to come out there. I've always, as I said, always been fortunate to um, have traveled all across the world, and I've always my primary travels and going to cities and staying has always focus has always been on the continent. And not that that's wrong, because we are an African people, but also a Pan African people. And so uh, I wanted to go where, we are also at, and see those experiences elsewhere. And so that led me to go there. And then when I go there, of course, my mission is not to just simply go as a tourist. That's one thing I can say. My experiences on the continent have been far from that. Yes, I do some tourist activity things. However, when I'm there, I'm also conducting research. And so this gave me an opportunity to not sort of, to also get in some research opportunities in the area of African traditional religion, or what is considered in that region as pre uh, pre-Islamic, or before the advent of Islam. And so, man, I am really thankful on my journey there. I can't thank enough my brothers and sisters and cousins from Ethiopia. Oh my goodness, like, man, this, to the stewardess, to the people at the hotel, to the Ethiopian brothers and sisters that I met. I always enjoy going through Ethiopia, and also just interacting with the people. And I'm very thankful. So thank you so much for doing the things you did, and allowing me to travel, and taking care of me. So thank you very much as for that. Also, the in general, my when I went to Saudi Arabia, the people, I was specifically in the area of Jeddah and Medina, and those areas. I'm Everyone that I came across of was very pleasant. I met Thank you to my Somali brothers as well. I want to call them Somali Americans because they spend a lot of time in America and go home for, maybe a month out of the year, from what one of the brothers was sharing. But we were talking and having conversations and things of that nature. And so I'm very thankful for that, and getting their experience as Africans in America too. And so I do want to say that Saudi is a very beautiful country, again, with beautiful people. I didn't have any negative experiences. I was taken care of very well. Um, and so I do want to start off in saying that. Now, one thing about Saudi Arabia, from what I saw, they do archive very well what is considered pre-Islamic artifacts. Now, I know that there was a concern there with the current um, Islamic populace, meaning that the Prophet Muhammad himself was from um, from Syria, and therefore, and this is how I'm going to classify him. He was white from Syria. However, he became associated with the African ethnic groups that were in Saudi Arabia, and then you also had people from all the other places as well in and around that time. And so all those people, but particularly I want to focus on his interaction with African traditional religion there, or pre-Islamic religion that was there. He incorporated a lot of his beliefs through his own racial and ethnicity and culture, as well as what was there at the time. And that's why you had at the time of him, you still had in the Kaaba, you still had the images of in the sculpture of different gods. So in essence, you not only had his defining of Allah, his belief system of Allah, but you had Allah and the Ilah. So you had the creator God, but you also had the gods. Now, upon his passing, of course, right? So you have the different groups of people he influenced. and those groups of people are still there, and so therefore you have the different interpretations once he left. And so, of course, right now you have the Saudi family that's there, and in which case, as you see, then the advent of the continual change that is occurring because different groups of people, for example, uh, Saudi Arabia versus Bahrain versus Iraq and Iran. Those are not only do you have the different so-called sects within those interpretations of Islam, but even in that you have different interpretations. You have Wahhabism as well, and so these are all different doctrines, as well as further south you have different interpretations of what Islam is, and through those different evolutions, right? You sometimes you lose, especially in the sense of African traditional religion, you don't have any mention of any of the gods that existed uh, during that particular time. At least mainstream wise, I say mainstream is because again, you only for those outside looking in, you may only say there's just Islam. However, when I went to the different museums there and got to see the artifacts, you see some of that still captured and held there. But just as in the United States, many Africans do not have a knowledge of their African history and culture due to African ancestral enslavement here in America. There, in a similar way, how religion has or how Islam has educated the masses. Many people do not know their history. The very people that are still there to this day do not know the history of Allah and the Ilah, or Allah and the gods. Um, and so, but however, there was when I was there, I was reading something in particular how these people in the uh, or the people who wrote the article was voicing of the importance of it. And even now, with the Saudi family, you're seeing a lot of the the shrines and things that were built following the Prophet Muhammad's times. How a lot of that is being um, um, I don't want to use the word destroyed, but it's being built over or moved or changed because of the thought. The interpretation is that this does not represent Islam, but more importantly, it's uh, it it ties into African traditional religion and the belief in those that are past should still be venerated, that type of thing. And so there's regardless of what whether it's the Saudis, whether it's Iraq, any of those groups that do not have to deal with African people, and even some Africans too as well. They they fight tooth and nail to make sure that African Patara religion does not come back to Saudi Arabia. And another way I look at the religion, the African traditional religion that exists in that region, is called, for lack of a better term right now, I call it African Islam. And you have to understand that there is different forms of Islam, and I got to be careful here because I know that a lot of Africans practice Islam. Um, However, it is the religion of Islam is a non-African religion, and as I said, it is similar to the extent of the experience that we had here in the United States, in that it does not, um, well, I could say it this way: the religion, it enslaves us, in this aspect, uh, with African traditional religion, mentally, and there, of course, too, as well, there was, uh, some physical battles that occurred as well, and so going there firsthand and seeing that, I was pleasantly surprised. A lot of things you wouldn't see in any books. You had to go there and go to the museum and see. And there's many museums there. And so I'm glad I had a chance to go there. I plan to do a follow-up video because I actually wanted to, or I actually plan to do a follow-up visit because I actually wanted to go further south to see firsthand some of these different areas and things of that nature. But like I said, it was a very beautiful experience, and there are, uh, a number of us there in Saudi Arabia, um, and like I said, I had no negative experiences. Every experience was great. The people I interacted with were great, and so I plan to go back and speak a little bit further on my experience.